Thank you for joining us. My name is Carl Persing, coordinator of the Industrial Organizational Psychology program at Marywood University, and I'll be the facilitator for the presentation today. This webinar was created by the Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology, known as PSYOP, to increase awareness and understanding of industrial organizational psychology among students in psychology and in business. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acquaint you with a few features of this web event technology. At any time, you may adjust your audio using any computer volume settings. When we begin, you'll be asked to provide, or actually, you've provided several questions already. Thank you for doing that. At the left-hand side of your screen, we'll see the text chat window. There's a large window that holds all of your sent messages and a smaller text box at the bottom where you will type in your questions. To send a question, click in the text box and type. When finished, click the Send button. All questions that you submit are only seen by today's presenters. Your questions will be responded to in the order in which they were received and according to the time constraints and relevance. Questions will be addressed as time permits near the end of the presentation. At the conclusion of today's program, we ask that you complete a brief post-event survey. Please take a moment to complete this survey as it will help PSYOP plan future web events. We are joined today by my co-moderators, Uma Iyer and Lauren Mondo, who are I-O Psychologists and members of the academic subcommittee of the Visibility Committee of PSYOP. Our panelists today include I-O Psychologists who work in industry and academics, and we will introduce them very soon. At this time, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Lauren Mondo, who will introduce herself and provide an introduction to the field of I-O psychology.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Mondo, and I'm a PhD student in the Baruch College I-O program. Just to give you a little overview of I-O psychology, it is a specialization within psychology that involves the application of principles of psychology to understanding behavior in the workplace. This subfield of psychology involves factors that affect people's behavior and interactions in the workplace and in organizations. Traditionally, industrial and organizational psychology have been distinguished from each other based on content areas. Industrial or personnel psychology is associated with job analysis, employee selection, training, and performance measurement, while organizational psych deals with motivation, work attitudes, leadership, and organizational development and culture. The outlook for careers in the field is very positive. There is very low unemployment among I-O psychologists, and it is among the highest paying areas within psychology, with an average salary of $70,000 for master's level and then over $100,000 for PhD level. I will now turn the mic over to Uma Iyer, who will introduce herself and talk about the previous webinars produced by PSYOP.
Hi, this is Uma Iyer, faculty at Austin Peay State University and a member of PSYOP Visibility Committee. And I would like to tell you about some of the archives that we have available at the PSYOP's website, www.siop.org. And you can move on to the students page and you will see some of the previous webinars that we have conducted, and you can access the archives of these webinars, 2 of them. And this is the 3rd webinar of the Visibility Committee. And you can check out the archives at any time at PSYOP's website. I would like Lauren to introduce the panelists now.
Okay, so first we have Dominic Catone, who is a senior consultant for YSC in Chicago. Dominic has over 10 years of experience in training, career and performance management, leadership development, internal communications, and team dynamics. Next, we have Jeffrey Jolton, who is a director of consulting at Connexa, where he provides thought leadership and strategic direction for several global clients. He has over 18 years of consulting experience in organizational leadership and individual assessment. And next we have Alexis Fink, who is a senior consultant in talent and organization capability at Microsoft. She currently works with measurement and assessments, change management and competency strategy, but also has prior experience in employee engagement and culture research. Next, we have Mark Rose, who is a research director with Pearson's Talent Lens team. His work focuses on test development and statistics, and he has led the development and revisions of popular Pearson assessments. Mark is also an adjunct faculty member in the graduate I-O program at St. Mary's University. And next we have Valerie Sessa, who is an associate professor of industrial and organizational psychology at Montclair State University. She is the graduate program coordinator for the psychology grad programs and the director for the master's in I-O psychology. She has also worked as a research scientist at the Center for Creative Leadership. Next, we have Deb Gebhardt, who is the president of Human Performance Systems and has over 25 years of experience developing and validating evaluation systems for private, public, and military organizations. She has published research in job analysis, test development and validation, medical guidelines, and biomechanics, and she has also served as an expert witness in class action and ADA litigation involving physical performance tests used in selection for public and private sector personnel. And then lastly, we have Jody Simcoe, who is a principal at Hay Group's Survey Research Division. She's responsible for the research design and implementation of large-scale employee engagement and culture survey projects. She has experience consulting with federal government organizations and Fortune 500 companies to improve employee engagement and effectiveness, customer satisfaction, and overall performance.
Thank you, Lauren. Now we're going to give the panelists a chance to answer some questions that will illustrate the work that they typically do as a part of their interesting jobs. The panelists will answer the question in the order that their names appear. So panelists, what does your company or the division of your company do? What is your job title? Who do you report to? And what are the major duties of your job?
So this is Dominic Catone, and my company, what we essentially do is we really, in terms of team assessment, individual assessment, and organizational assessment and development, we focus on how we can create more meaning in organizations and really better their talent strategies going forward. We work with a number of Fortune 500 companies. My job title specifically is I'm the head of the Chicago office, but I also lead up our function around business development. So I help our other consultants internally identify and address the needs of current clients, but also develop relationships with new clients. I actually report into our managing director here in the Americas. So we have 5 managing directors for our entire business across the globe. So I've got a great opportunity to work with one of our leaders who has been with the business for quite some time now. YSC has actually been in existence for over 20 years and are headquartered out of Covent Garden in England. And my major duties for my job is really to identify and build those talent strategies for those organizations so that they could retain their talent, but also continue to develop their talent and select in the right talent for their cultures and their organizations.
This is Jeff Jolton. I'm a director of consulting at Connexa. And Connexa is a business solution provider in the human resource space. So we work both with technology, thought leadership, and consulting in providing a whole spectrum of human resource support. We really look at it in terms of helping identify and find the right people for jobs through recruiting and selection, and then maximizing their potential in the work environment. So we do that through employee engagement, performance management, and other kinds of talent management strategies. So in terms of my job titles, I mentioned Director of Consulting. I report to the Managing Director of the Consulting Business Team. So there's a team of us globally that work on managing a group of consultants In my particular group, I focus on employee engagement and organization development. So the team that I lead is focused on that, and I personally am involved as the executive consultant for several of our largest global projects. So I do a lot of work on the global level, doing employee survey, then change action based on the results of those survey programs, and then also lead my team in making them better professionals as well.
All right, and I'm Alexis Fink. I work at Microsoft, but I work in a part of the company called Talent and Organization Capability. Broadly, we're responsible for all of the staffing and learning and development activities within the company. So that includes things like competency validation. It includes selection. I do get to work with performance appraisal. We do succession planning, executive coaching, a variety of assessments, things like employee engagement, all kinds of employee research. So we really get to run the gamut of I-O psychology topics, but within the spectrum of our 90 or so thousand person global organization.
Hi everyone, this is Mark Rose. I'm a research director at Pearson. Pearson's a pretty broad company, publishes a wide range of assessments as well as books and textbooks. Some of the better known brands of Pearson are things like Penguin Books, the Financial Times, the Wechsler Intelligence Test, and the MMPI. My division in particular, though, focuses on developing tests for employee selection and development. So some of our tests include things like the Watson-Glaser and the Ravens. I report to the general manager of talent assessment, who reports to the division president of international testing. And my major duties involve things like writing test items or training people to write test items, partnering with other countries to translate and adapt our tests into other languages, and using statistical software to make sure that our tests are related to job performance and job fit, and making sure that our tests are fair to all applicants.
Hi, this is Valerie Sessa. I'm an associate professor of industrial organizational psychology at Montclair State University. Montclair is in New Jersey. I report to the chair, I guess, of my department is my official report to. And the major duties of my job are pretty much in three areas. I do teaching. Teaching includes classroom teaching. It includes mentoring students, doing research groups with students. It includes doing master's theses with students. I also develop curriculum to keep our curricula in I-O psychology and in psychology up to date and meeting the needs of the students. So that's my one area that I work in. I do research in a variety of different areas. I have done some research mostly in the area of individual, group, and organizational learning in the last few years, and how individual, group, and organizational learning interact with each other. And then the third thing that I do as part of my job is to participate in service. So for example, I'm the graduate program coordinator of the master's psychology program and oversee all the graduate students. I oversee the graduate assistantships, the TA, the teaching assistantships. I am also the director of the industrial organizational master's program, so I mentor all our I-O students. And then I also do service to the university, and it's part of my job to do service to support my profession.
My name is Debbie Gebhardt. I'm with Human Performance Systems, and our company primarily provides selection assessments and promotion assessments for public, private, and sometimes military sectors. We do a lot of job analysis. Most of our work focuses more on what you would term the blue-collar jobs. We we do cognitive tests for selection and promotion, and also physical performance tests. And we're probably best known for our work in physical performance area, along with development of medical guidelines. All of the work we do is always linked back to the job analysis, so we do a lot of job analysis. We work in a variety of sectors. We work for different federal agencies, as well as state and local agencies, and then we have a variety of private sector organizations that are in telecommunications, electric industry, and so forth. My duties, they range. One day I could be Xeroxing, but mainly it's conducting job analysis, determining what some of the factors are for development of the assessments that we do. We do a lot of criterion-related validity studies, and so we participate in that. And then unique duties that I do are probably contract review, and also I think it was Dominic or Mark that said writing proposals to bring in other work. Who do I report to? I've been trying to figure that out for a long time. As president of the company, I report to my employees.
Hi, I'm Jody Simcoe, and I have been at the Hay Group now for 16 years, so been working in consulting for a while now. And the Hay Group is a global company. We're located around the world that really focuses on improving organizational performance through people. So we do pretty much the full gamut of I-O as well. We do leadership development, helping to make sure that leaders are effective and create a good work environment for their employees. We develop compensation and benefit programs. I am actually part of the survey research division, and I focus in the area of employee engagement surveys. I am a principal at Hay Group, and basically my major role, I report to the head of U.S. business development, and my role is to bring in business in the survey research, particularly in the federal government sector. So I have been focusing most of my time trying to grow our business in the federal government, although I also work with some private sector companies as well. And my major roles are selling employee surveys, which is going out a lot and networking and meeting people in the federal government agencies, writing proposals, making presentations. But I also do work with several clients still to conduct their employee surveys and present results to senior leadership teams, and work with senior leadership teams to use the survey results to improve their culture and improve the workplace environment so that they create a place where employees want to stay in the organization and are engaged.
Very interesting. Next question is, how does your work provide ROI, or return on investment, for your company? How does your work impact the company?
This is Dominic. So this is really twofold for us when I take a look at this question, and I think about not only what is my return on investment here at YSC, but also what type of ROI do I bring to my clients. And I think that's the one thing that really we focus on here at YSC is what is the ROI, what does that look like? And for us, typically, when we're hiring or we're helping organizations to hire and bring in the right talent, promote the right talent, develop the right talent, what we're looking at is retention. And we're trying to identify how are they engaging their employees, how are they keeping their employees motivated, and at the same time, what are those employees doing in their jobs that's really touching the bottom line of the business. So we'll look at turnover rates with our clients and really help to understand over the years that we've been working with them. Now, our client systems that we've worked with, many of our clients have stuck with us for as long as we've been in existence. So each and every year we're able to benchmark with them and understand where their turnover rates are and what those percentages look like. And consistently across the board, for most of the organizations that we've worked with, we've seen decreasing hiring rates and an increase in retention and engagement because of some of the programs that we're able to implement and the metrics that they've collected. So in terms of my ROI internally for YSC, one of the areas that I focus on, and I wear many different hats, but like I said before, so I really identify and work with my fellow consultants to really help and see, okay, what are some of the clients that we could potentially work with out there within our current client systems, what are some of their needs, and really helping my internal clients to drive that business with our external clients so that we can really continue to develop and grow those client organizations and so that they can be successful in terms of their own business.
Hey, this is Debbie Gebhardt. Yes, this is a big issue for our company because of the work in the area of physical performance that we do. We conduct injury studies prior to our work as well as after the implementation of a testing procedure. We've had, just to give you an example, we had a study that implemented a cognitive test and a physical performance test, and the return on investment to the employer in that was well over $2 million a year. But where you really see return on investment is where when you implement testing is in not so much the reduction in injuries, but the actual lost time from work. To give you an idea, in the railroad industry, those who were tested had per year approximately $2 million in lost time, and those who were not tested in studies had over $14 million in lost time from work. So this is a big thing for us. We try to work with our clients to look at where their biggest problems are in turnover, what jobs have the turnover, and then we start to design whatever types of activities are needed, whether it might be pre-employment testing or it might be an ergonomic adjustment to the workplace that might help out. Those are all factors that we try to work with our employers. And like Dominic, some of our clients have been with us for many years, and so we get to go back and see how the actual selection procedures that we've input are doing in helping on a return on investment.
Hi, this is Jody from Hay Group again. And like Dominic, I really see in my work impacting both the revenue of my company, but also having a return on investment for my clients. So because my main responsibility is going out and getting new work, going out and trying to identify organizations that would be interested in conducting an employee engagement survey with us, my work has a direct impact on my company's bottom line through bringing in new business. But also, I also work with clients to ensure that the current clients, we also have clients that have been with us for a while, and we want to make sure continually that our clients are getting the value from us and that they continue to use our services and even to grow our services and have our clients, do other things like we'll go out and do an employee engagement survey and find out that they have issues around leadership, and then we can then work with them to assess their leaders, find out where they have gaps, and then to develop their leaders. Now, in terms of the return on investment of our consulting, we have a very large research group. Most of them are I-O PhDs, and they conduct a lot of research linking employee engagement to key outcomes. We have huge databases, and we have linked employee engagement where organizations that have a high level of engagement, so they have employees who really were committed to the organization, employees who want to go that extra mile to help the organization to succeed. We find direct links between that and important outcomes such as retention, so those that engage employees are more likely to have less turnover. They're also more likely to have higher customer satisfaction ratings and also higher revenue growth. So we see a very direct link between employee engagement and critical performance outcomes. And we work with some of our clients to actually link their employee engagement data to these important performance outcomes.
This is Jeff Jolton, and we're being asked who are your coworkers and how your coworkers and your company perceive your function, and are you involved in strategic planning or development functions? So within Connexa, I have a lot of different coworkers. So when I'm working more in the director of consulting mode, my peers are other consulting directors, which are 7 of us internationally, and then also the consultants that we lead on our team. So our job is really there, really promoting a thought leadership or the science that we're bringing into what we're doing and upskilling the talent of the consultants that sit on our teams. In terms of actual practice, and when I'm working as the executive consultant, then there's the execution of the survey process and the change management process that we go through. And when we are in those situations, then my coworkers involve project managers and program directors who help oversee the execution of the project. So they set forth the timelines and make sure that everything is set up technically and that we have all the information we need to the client back and forth, setting up the organization, mapping, and so forth. With that are engineers and quality assurance people and research analysts to help support the project. We also work closely with business development, providing thought leadership to when there's a request for proposal or going out into a sales process. And then finally, because I work with our clients, they are also considered co-workers. I mean, we really work in partnership with people who sit inside organizations leading their survey and change programs. How our role is being perceived, I think within Connexa, the I-O psychologists are really seen, I think, as the thought leaders, bringing in the science, bringing in the research, and also the analytic skills to make sure that the project is successful, really helping understand the strategy that the client is trying to achieve. We just talked about ROI. It's really how are we going to use this process to assure that we make those connections. And so the consultants are viewed, or the I-O psychologists are viewed as being the experts who are able to kind of make all those connections happen and make sure that we're measuring the right things and that we're following through with the right kinds of action plans. Within Connexa, we're involved in strategic planning and development, definitely. As I said, we're part of a consulting business team. It's all I-O psychologists that advise the organization in terms of where consulting should go, how it fits with the growth of the company, what kinds of innovations that we might need or we should be bringing forward, and new technologies that might be there. And as I mentioned, helping with the business development as well as developing the talent, not only of our consultants, but then project managers and others inside the organization. Alexis?
Sure. As an internal consultant, I have a slightly different coworker set. Almost my whole career has been internal consulting. At Microsoft, I've had the privilege of working on a core team of PhD I-O psychologists at times. I've also been the only I-O psychologist on a team at times. And in my prior life, I was the only I-O psychologist in a 100,000-person organization at one point. So I've had a broad spectrum of coworkers, from I-O psychologists to finance and MBA and supply chain and engineers and a variety of other different professions. In general, both my coworkers and my company has perceived my function as very good. It's nice to feel proud of the work you do and the way you're able to bring value, especially in an environment where sometimes HR is the field you love to hate. There's a sort of infamous Fast Company article from a year or two ago that brought that forward pretty hard. And I-O psychology has been a wonderful way to bring that value and that sort of mathematical and factual reasoning to something that can often be perceived as a matter of opinion. So that's been very, very helpful for me. Are you involved in strategic planning or development functions? I get to be involved in strategic planning and development at a variety of levels. I've had an opportunity to do business and company level strategy, so actually figuring out business plans and corporate strategy in various roles. Also, I am consistently involved in strategic planning as they relate to either my own individual function or as they relate to things like succession plans. And from a development function, I've been able to play a role in that both when you think about business development and the future direction of the company, and as you think about development of individuals, be they high potentials or new managers or emerging leaders or senior leaders within a company. So I've really been privileged to have that broad spectrum of exposure to a variety of roles.
What aspects of your training in I-O Psychology apply to or prepare you for the duties of your job that you previously discussed?
So for me, there's really a good deal of overlap between my current job and my education. Some of the essential things I learned in graduate school were things like knowing how to do literature reviews, gaining knowledge of various interesting theories and research, also knowing about principles of testing such as reliability and validity, understanding how to show whether a test is fair. And then really important, which Alexis alluded to just a moment ago, is knowing about statistics and research design. So because it's important for I-O psychologists to provide evidence to show that what we're proposing really works, as opposed to just saying, take our word for it, it's important to understand and have some tools that let us know with some level of certainty whether our ideas can be supported from a scientific perspective. So that quantitative background in addition to the theoretical background.
Hi, this is Valerie Sessa, the Associate Professor at Montclair State University. Of course, I learned the research, the experimental design, every part of research has directly applied to my job as a professor. Also, if you think of your education in industrial organizational psychology to include certain skills, not just the knowledge of I-O psychology or of psychology, but also skills such as facilitation, just having been exposed. I had an internship in my program, so being exposed to organizations, that sort of thing. I've realized that I have certain political skills that are a big, big, big help in universities, being able to take, for example, a problem-solving perspective instead of a problem perspective. So that's actually, I've earned a reputation at Montclair as being, a rational decision maker, and I think that is due to my work and my education in industrial organizational psychology. Interestingly, I know the question doesn't ask this, but what aspects of my training or what I didn't get in training to be an I-O psychologist is how to teach, which is kind of interesting. So I have learned on the job how to be a good teacher, how to be a good learning facilitator. So that was kind of an eye-opening experience to me when I first started in academics, that when I first walked into the classroom, I wasn't quite sure what I needed to do.
How does your training in I-O psychology help you to perform your duties in a manner that's unique from coworkers who are not I-O psychologists?
Well, this is Dominic again. Just being able to really identify behavior and what that behavior means for a person's position, for their job function, where did that behavior come from? Where do they learn those behaviors? How do those behaviors play out now in their futures, not only in their careers, but also how's their private lives really attached also to their professional careers? One of our products, our offerings here at YSC, is we essentially conduct 4-hour assessments with very senior leaders in organizations to really drive out some of those psychological insights. And really, who are they intellectually? What type of intellectual capacity do they bring into their businesses? Also motivationally, what drives them, and how do they drive other people when they're working within their roles and their functions and their businesses? That interpersonal engagement. So who are they as an individual when they're engaging on teams? How do they like to work with other people? How do they drive teams? Are they an independent worker, or do they need to work with others at all times? In terms of their insights, do they have any self-awareness? Are they able to articulate what are some of their own areas of strength and development going forward? And at the same time, do they have that type of insight into the other people that they work with, which is really incredibly necessary when you're coaching and managing the performance of others? And then finally, ultimately, in terms of leadership potential, what are some of the leadership behaviors that we see successful in very global organizations throughout much of our research that we've conducted for the past 20 years? What does that say about a leader at those levels? I think that's something to really focus on. But I also think, and going back kind of to the last question, the two other areas that I kind of want to tie into this is that for an I-O psychologist to really excel and do well in this area as well is to really not only understand business and understand what business means for clients, but also just simple things like finance, accounting, some of these things that a lot of I-O psychologists may not study throughout the history of their academic careers, but also really consulting skills. So understanding how to work with individuals in these environments, but bring those consulting skills that are necessary to not only engage them and learn more about them, but also to work within very, very difficult, very large client systems.
Building on what you were saying, Dominique, I think that a lot of what is true is just really understanding business and business practices is really critical. And part of what I brought in from my degree is not just the science of I-O psychology, but being able to take that and make it business relevant, make it business applicable, because that's such a big part of my work is helping businesses grow and become better businesses. So if I didn't really understand that element, it would be hard. And so I think that sets me apart, for someone who may not be an I-O psychologist, that, they're coming in only from a business perspective and not really understanding the measurement or the people elements, the motivations, all those different things that we bring in, the styles of leadership, and be able to translate those business dreams into reality, for example. That's something that the science brings in. I think a lot for me, in my experience, it certainly will open a lot of doors for me when I started in my career and continued. It's just the strength that I have from a statistics and research background. So, understanding how to study something, how to measure it, how to evaluate it statistically, and then being able to translate that to business leaders has been a real key differentiator. So again, clients come to us and say, they don't have that expertise, and when I bring that in, it's not something that a program manager would have. And then also kind of related from the training I have is definitely being able to provide thought leadership. So being able to read the research articles that are out there and formulate that into new ideas or synthesize that, and that's something that definitely comes from the training, identifying best practices, creating best practices. Again, the training I've had, it's been a big part of that. And then finally, I think more than anything else, the graduate school for me provided me with a real strength of critical analysis, which is so much of what we do. Whether we're looking at data or just listening to leaders, understanding what their problems are, it's being able to reason our way through things that are new and being able to critically evaluate what this information means and come up with solutions. And again, good graduate training doesn't just have you reiterate. You're not just reading articles, you're synthesizing, you're learning how to critically evaluate things and forge new ground. So that was a big part of what I think I-O training does that's different from what you might see in other programs or from other backgrounds.
Yeah, and this is Jody, just to piggyback Dominic and Jeffrey. I mean, similar things, really. I mean, just coming in with a much greater breadth of knowledge in my field, both from, the organizational culture, employee engagement and motivation, working with some of the top professors in culture, in climate, and really coming in understanding really what drives motivation and what drives organizational performance. Having a strong research base, I think, as the others have said, being in the survey research group, understanding how to put psychometrically or well-designed surveys together, understanding although I don't go and do the analysis myself, understanding how to direct those analysis, understanding what those analysis mean, all very important. I just wanted to mention one other thing, although this doesn't necessarily have to do with the expertise, but being an I-O psychologist in consulting, at least in mine, gets you a lot of respect, both from your colleagues and from your clients. So just real more credibility with your clients in the sales process when you go in, and also as you're working with your clients. I think you're really viewed more as an expert. And there's several clients out there, both in the government and the private sector, that really are strong focused on research and statistics, and I think it really benefits you to come in with that expertise and to be really viewed as credible.
All right, so the next question is the challenges of practicing I-O psychology within your business. And as an internal consultant, it's interesting that the challenges of practicing I-O psychology are much less about my expertise and much more about my ability to be an effective influencer. And this isn't to be an effective influencer when I'm asked at the beginning. In fact, I find that to be my favorite time to be involved, but rather when at the end of someone working on something for 18 months, they realize, hey, Alexis knows a lot about this. You should go see her. And in 15 minutes, I have to tell them why something they worked on for 18 months has got some really fatal flaws and needs to go back and do something else to be legally compliant or statistically valid or valuable. So being able to handle delicate situations in a way that provides a good outcome for the individual who's done the work, and more so for the company and the people who be affected, it's actually the most challenging situation that I face. At a broader level, challenges of practicing I-O psychology within my business are just the tremendous range of problems and opportunities that come my way. So in the last 18 months alone, I've been able to analyze employee surveys and use some really terrific statistics to get at some deep insight within those. I've been able to look at our staffing processes and some of our selection work, both in a variety of aspects. I've been able to work on validating competency models, on delivering and assessing the impact of training, on doing executive assessment, on managing on measurement from a variety of aspects, on performance management systems. So part of the challenge is just to be able to be sufficiently expert at a wide range of things, and to have enough professional humility to know when I need to call in an external who would be more deeply expert on something that would be incredibly important to, for example, be up on the latest of the case law. So one of my biggest challenges is effective influence, particularly when I've been brought in sort of at the tail end of a project. And the other is to have a great breadth of expertise that I can bring to bear on the wide and exciting variety of projects that come my way.
A couple of things come to mind for me. One is competing with other organizations who make claims that their testing or assessment processes can do things that no test or assessment could possibly do. So as I-O psychologists, we tend to be very concerned with scientific rigor. So if you say that your test can pinpoint high performers 99% of the time, for example, we'd say you need to prove it. So some people in business may not know the difference, and they may simply equate the looks of a test with its quality. So our job at that point becomes educating people about what good testing means, as well as what some of the practical limitations are. Another challenge that comes to mind is that internally, not everyone in the organization is an I-O psychologist. That applies to Pearson. That applies to many organizations, of course. So if you tell people that it's going to take hundreds of thousands of dollars, for example, and several years to develop a great test, they may just tell you that your services aren't needed. So you really have to be willing to look for and find compromises that meet everyone's needs and best interests.
Next group of panelists, what are the most and least rewarding aspects of your job?
This is Jeff. I just have to say I love what I do. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've always had a great passion for it. So when you ask that question, it's very tough. But when I think about what's really most rewarding to what I do, I think I've had a great opportunity throughout my career to work with some of the best and most talented managers and leaders in organizations across the world. So I love the diversity of the work I do and being able to meet and interact with some of these really talented leaders, executives of large companies, and learn from them. I also love mentoring the team that I lead and the consultants, so it's a really big, rewarding part of my job is just helping other people become great at what they do. I think when you ask the least rewarding is really tough to think about it, but yes, I really hate filling out timesheets, which, as a consultant, you really do have to do a lot of time management and keeping time and really kind of managing that with my team. I'm a very nonlinear kind of thinker, and so to have to keep that kind of rigor, it's probably, it's the least rewarding piece, and it's a necessary part of the business because that's how we, track performance, track time, bill clients. But, it's a small price to pay for the rewards that I do get out of my work.
Hi, this is Valerie Sessa at Montclair. The most rewarding part of my job is that I can make it completely my own. I am given general guidelines. I need to teach so many courses. I need to do research. I need to do service. And that's about all that I am pretty much told to do. So I can pick out the courses that I want to teach, when I want to teach them, how I want to teach them, what books do I want to use. I can research whatever I want. I can pick and choose who I do my research with. I can pick and choose where, what kind of research, that sort of thing. The service, I can do as little or as much service as I want as long as I'm doing some. And I can pick what I want to do, who I want to, committees that I want to sit on, that sort of thing. I can, my job is very flexible. I can work I have to be in the office for teaching and for my hours to work with students, but otherwise I can work at home. I could work in Hawaii. I could work wherever I wanted. I just need to be able to link in. If I want to play hooky on a nice Friday afternoon, nobody is watching over me. I can just go do what I want to do, as long as, of course, I'm not supposed to be meeting somebody or in class. So I'm pretty much like a kid in a candy store when it comes to my job, because if I'm doing something that I don't like, it's my own fault. The other thing that I really have come to appreciate in my job is working with students, both undergraduate and graduate students. I don't do research anymore unless I am involving an undergraduate or a graduate student. So I have research groups, I have one-on-one research that I do, and I find that very fulfilling. And this is amazing. I cannot think of an unrewarding part of my job. I guess it's what you're going to find in any job, which is dealing with the politics in your specific organization. And, for nobody, I think, likes to deal with the politics all that much, but you're going to get them in any organization that you work in. So, I would say that's probably the only thing I could point to. Deb?
Okay. I actually truly love my job. I enjoy problem solving. We have an issue and we have to come up with a manner in which we're going to solve an issue. Those are very exciting days when we all get together and do that. I also love meeting the different people that we encounter in all of the different types of jobs that we look at when we go out in job analysis. I've encountered some of the most intelligent people in the whole world that have high school educations. They are talented people in their areas, and they're just a joy to work with. And I think the other part of my job that I like is I like working with the people that I work with. They are truly a great group of people, and they everybody contributes to what we do, and that makes work fun. If I had to pick probably the most fun part of my job, I'd say it's going out and seeing other jobs. Those are the great things. I think there's a lot of satisfaction when we write a lot of reports at the end of our studies that could be used in litigation or whatever their purpose will be. But it's very rewarding at the end when you send that out. That's a very rewarding thing after your edits. And I'd say probably the least rewarding, I'm kind of like Jeff. I don't have something that I truly dislike in my job. Timesheets, yes, we all must do those, as he said. But I think one of the ones that kind of bogs me down is contract review. But it's a necessary thing if we're going to have new work. So and it's not all that bad anyway. So I think that those are my ideas.
Thank you very much, panelists. Those were very in-depth and interesting answers to those questions, and I'm sure that our participants are going to benefit a lot by hearing your in-depth answers. I'm going to turn it over now to Uma Iyer, who will conduct the question and answer session. We're running low on time, so we won't have time for a lot of questions, but I'll allow her to fit a few questions in before the end of our webinar. Uma?
Hi. Yeah, the panelists have been answering questions submitted by a lot of the participants so far, and there are a few questions that's not been assigned, so I'm going to throw those out to panelists, and whoever wants to pick it can go ahead. One question is, I'm a PhD in marketing out of country. Is it about the background to apply for I-O PhD? Is it imperative to take I-O core courses to get into the I-O program?
I can answer that one. When I look for students or review applicants for ours is a master's program, we look to see if students who do not have a psychology background, we look to see if they have the core psychology courses. That is research methods courses, statistics courses, and experimental courses, laboratory courses. Less important is whether you have core industrial organizational classes, because we'll teach you those core industrial organizational classes once you come on board. We're really more interested in, do you have some core psychology knowledge?
Okay, here's another question. My school does not have a track in I-O Psych. What business classes would you recommend a psychology student to take if interested in I-O?
Same sort of question. We are interested in whether you have the core psych courses. I mean, yes, the core psych courses, less interested in specific courses. However, if you have business courses, you can certainly take like an HR course or a personnel course, or you can take an organizational behavior course. So those two might be good, because that'll also give you some feeling for the kinds of things that we would study in I-O Psychology. Just a little bit of background. Usually the I-O Psychologies are courses that would be like a personnel psychology course or an organizational psychology course are much more theoretical, and you get much more we'd expect a better understanding of experimental design and statistics and stuff like that than often you would find in a business course.
Here's a short version of a long question. Is it more difficult to find a job with a master's degree versus a PhD? And also, do jobs with a master's require a lot of traveling?
I'll answer that. Yes, you can find a job with a master's degree in I-O Psych in a variety of organizations. There are a variety of people that we've had that have gone on, some on for their PhD, and they tend to learn a lot when they're working on the job. So yes, you can get a job. And you do have to travel, at least for us.
Well, you have to travel depending on what kind of job you've got.
Yeah, that's true.
This is Alexis.
Consultant,
that's right. And I went from traveling 50 weeks a year to traveling usually 2 weeks a year is my limit now, and that's internal. So there are options in the field depending on whether you prefer to travel and all the good things that come with that, or you prefer to stay home and all the good things that come with that.
I think there's a lot of flexibility out there in terms of what you can do with either the master's or the PhD, and some travel, others not. It really depends on what you want to do.
There's a question related to salaries. How does in the panelist experience relate to the cost of schooling? For example, how does I-O graduate and doctoral costs compare to the salaries in general?
Well, I-O psychologists are generally well paid compared to graduates of other psychology programs. So I would say if cost is one thing that you're worried about, then I-O psychology is certainly worth looking into. Can you repeat the question, Uma, the rest of the question?
How does in the panelist experience relate to the cost of schooling? For example, how does I-O graduate and doctoral costs compare to the salaries in general?
I knew there was another part that I wanted to answer. Many PhD programs have assistantships. So you'll get your tuition paid and a couple of bucks monthly, not enough to buy a car, but at least to more or less keep you alive. So, and the master's program we have here at Montclair State also has graduate assistantships and teaching assistantships. We can't give them to every student. We award them on a competitive basis. So one of the things you would want to look for in the programs that you're applying to is how many of the students do get some sort of assistance to help pay for their schooling, and that would help too. If you can come out having had a year or even 2 years or a couple of years of your tuition paid, you're really going to be in good shape regarding any psychology program that you go into, to be honest.
And to jump onto that, this is Alexis. The context I would also add is a good deal of that is up to you. None of my professors are on here, so I can say this. My PhD program had a rule that you weren't allowed to have external employment, but I don't like being poor. And so I managed to find internships and flexible work arrangements, small local companies that were dying to have some help, and cobbled together not only a bunch of tremendous resume experience, but also a very nice living. This would have been 15 years ago. I was, cobbling together about a $45,000 a year income as a graduate student, between doing a variety of little consulting gigs I pulled together. And my primary job at that point was being a graduate student. So you can manage a livable wage where you can pay your car insurance and your health insurance and an apartment that's, not in a ghetto, and even maybe take a vacation now and then. But part of that is whether or not you're willing to go out and kind of look for it. It's probably not going to come to you on a silver platter. And the wages are quite good. Anyone on this line would have been involved or come across PSYOP. There is a terrific resource, unlike anything I've ever seen in any other profession, and I've spent time looking on the SIOP publications. We do about every 3 years a pretty comprehensive salary survey. And so you can look up by job title, by profession type, by years of schooling, years since you've been out of school, what the sort of salary ranges you might be able to expect are. And that's just a terrific resource that I would encourage you to look for on the SIOP website. It's typically under the Publications tab.
Okay, I believe we have received most of the questions that you have and been answered. At this point, we would like to receive any final questions. If you have, please send those in, and we'll take this last 1 minute to wrap this up.
Okay. As we're wrapping this session up, I just want to thank the panelists again for their insightful remarks. And I know, as a professor myself, I know that students and people interested in I-O psychology are going to take a lot away from this webinar. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise with all of us. And if that's all the questions, because I have to be sensitive to time, I would like to thank everyone on the behalf of the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology for your participation in today's event. This concludes today's program. We sincerely hope that this webinar has helped our audience to increase their knowledge about industrial organizational psychology. Thank you all and have a great day.